Good question on the text line, by the way, since we've got so many new folks coming in on 95.7 FM. The Politics in a Pint, I'm out there, Mark's out there, John's the man behind the curtain, so he can't be seen out there at Politics in a Pint, but we have a beer in his honor. He's a KC Beer Co. guy, so we usually have one in John Anthony's honor. And we just have a good old time. As I mentioned, our candidates who are going to be out there next week on Tuesday in Overland Park at American Legion Post 370. Prasanth Reddy running against Sharice Davids and potentially your next Johnson County Sheriff and Doug Bedford. We do a little Q&A. You get to ask them questions, meet them, have a good time, and obviously we're out there hanging out with you. So it's low-key, it's fun, it's laid back, it's relaxed, and you just got to RSVP at the website, kcmotalkradio.com. That's what we do. It's all good. We look forward to seeing you out there. So this piece from KCUR, and boy, am I glad we are just absolutely kicking their butts, because this is the kind of garbage that they are putting out there in Kansas City media. You know, there's two teens who have been charged with second-degree murder in the fatal shooting of Sean Brady, the owner of Brady and Fox, the restaurant bar there in Brookside. Well, KCUR decides, you know what we got to do? We got to write a sympathetic piece about the teenage kids who are alleged to have killed Sean Brady. That is what your woke, garbage, local Kansas City media does. And that's why they're failing and we're not. This headline here at KCUR, father of Kansas City teen charged with killing chef says the juvenile system overlooked his son. Hey, Pops, you overlooked your son. Let's be very clear. Stop blaming the government. Stop blaming nameless, faceless bureaucracies. Take some responsibility as the dad. When your kid is running the streets, trying to steal vehicles, rob from cars, and is involved in the alleged shooting of a man who leaves behind a family, including 2 kids, you're not the victim here. And this should be pretty easy for all of us to agree on. I don't care what your political leanings are. I don't care if you're left, right, in the middle. This is a pretty easy concept, I would think, to understand. Only your national panhandler radio outlet would even consider writing a piece like this. And even by their standards, this is such hot garbage. KCUR writes, the 15-year-old boy charged with second-degree murder in the fatal shooting of Irish chef Sean Brady suffers from mental problems brought on by chemotherapy and was failed by the juvenile justice system, the teen's father said Wednesday. This guy is not worth an ounce of anyone's time. He's not. I mean, I feel bad for any child who has to get chemotherapy, but my goodness, talk about totally misdirecting from what happened here. 2 teenagers were trying to steal from a vehicle. The owner, Sean Brady, who has 2 kids, came outside, tried to interrupt the theft, and they shot and killed him. And now KCUR, which is trying to make the Kansas City Star look like the Wall Street Journal editorial board, is writing a piece like this. Oh, well, you know, the kid had chemo and the juvenile system failed him. How about you be a father? We know the data. If you have a father in your life, you are 20 times less likely to end up in a prison cell. We know the numbers. It's not debatable. The father being present makes all the difference in the world. It's not even close, John.
Well, apparently the chemo works, speaking from our modern medical science.
Yeah.
I mean, right? If you're well enough to be out toting a gun.
Yep, that's a good point as well.
Chemo must work, so that probably didn't really affect him negatively.
I can't imagine. KCUR goes on the right here. KH, who is believed to be the driver of the car stolen during Brady's shooting, had his handcuffs removed and was allowed to hug his father after a detention hearing in Jackson County Family Court. Look at how they set this piece up, too. Oh, he's just a kid who's hugging his dad. Well, guess what? Sean Brady's kids, they can't hug their dad. Their dad's not alive for them to hug. And that's where the sympathy should be. Not with these scumbag teenagers like KCUR is trying to portray. KCUR writes, "You're fine, ? His father asked his son after they embraced. The teen nodded yes. His younger brother, slouched in the front row of the courtroom with his arms crossed, refused to hug him. The judge, Jennifer Phillips, also ordered the second juvenile accused in the case, 17-year-old LM, to remain in detention on Wednesday. They're using initials, obviously, since they're minors. Although both boys are charged with second-degree murder, LM's attorney has argued that his crime is lesser because he was a passenger, not the shooter in the car the two are accused of stealing. Both are also charged with felony attempted theft of a motor vehicle and armed criminal action. When asked if he wanted to hug his parents, who were sitting with him at the defense table, LM said no and rushed out, his leg shackles clicking, while a sheriff's deputy ran up to catch him. Both boys face December hearings to determine if they will be charged as adults, and they should be charged as adults. A message needs to be sent loud and clear to Kansas City and the entire community that if you are going to act a fool and you are going to be shooting people in broad daylight in Brookside or anywhere in Kansas City, you will be charged as an adult and you will not see the light of day for decades, if at all. KCUR goes on the right here. The shooting of the popular restaurateur, along with a raft of car thefts and other property crimes by armed teens this summer, shocked the city, the Irish community, and the Brookside neighborhood. By the way, for those who listen to this show, they are not shocked by any of this. But I guess if you live in La La Land with your yard signs in this house, we believe, you might be surprised. You're only surprised by this if you consume KCUR. If you consume real news programs and you get the real skinny on what's happening in this town, like here on KCMO, you're not surprised by this, just so we're all on the same page. Only woke-a-dope KCUR reporters are surprised by this. Then here comes more of the sob story. KH's father, one of the teenagers involved in the shooting of Sean Brady, said his son was diagnosed with a rare cancer-like disorder that causes lesions in his body when he was 5 years old. He underwent 3 years of chemo, the father said, which severely affected his mental and cognitive functions. Apparently not enough to unload on a guy in broad daylight. KCUR is not publishing the father's name to protect the identity of his juvenile son. Juvenile court does not release the names of minors or information about many charges. His father, who had custody from ages 1 through 7, said he had the boy in a developmental education system, kept him on medications, made sure he attended doctor's appointments. Though his father tried to intervene in the boy's life, his behavior got worse after he attended an alternative school. The father said, quote, "That was it. It was over. He got the heart but wasn't taught to use it. He has a sincere heart." I'm sure he does. And he can put that sincere heart to use in a prison cell. KH's father also blamed the juvenile criminal justice system, which said he failed to give the boy the right discipline after his run-ins with the law and failed to treat his mental illness. KH's father said they overlook the youth. They don't think mental health is significant. It's always somebody else's fault, isn't it? It's never parents looking in the mirror and saying, boy, what did I do wrong? How did I screw this up? And I understand the old argument of nature versus nurture. We all, have dealt with situations. I know I have personally in my life where you feel like people were treated equally, but sometimes one ends up taking a much different path. And there's no doubt there are things like addiction that impact people's lives where you can have the same upbringing and sometimes it just doesn't work. But to look at this story and say the juvenile system failed this young boy, no, it failed Sean Brady. Because I don't know what's in this kid's background, but if there was enough in this kid's background where he should not have been running around Kansas City, toting guns and shooting people, then maybe you can blame judges and prosecutors, but I don't see how you're blaming just the justice system at large. And where are you as the dad if your kid's running wild around town and you know he's toting guns and committing crimes? 15 years old. Where are you to step in and be the father that kids need? And we've got the data on that. And the data is overwhelming. And this is apparently what this father needs to hear. And we'll share it with you and also get to you at 913-408-7957. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio. Less poverty, less prison, more college. It's really that simple. Good morning. We appreciate you being with us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. You just can't look at these numbers and come to any other conclusion than this. When you have two parents in the home, poverty decreases, chances of success when it comes to education increases. And what does that mean? You're going to stay out of prison. It means that you are going to potentially live a long, healthy, successful life. And that's what we want for all Americans. We'll get to it coming up here, 913-408-7957. Victor's in Parkville. Hey, Victor, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
You know, this is just shows the massive difference in the mindset between Democrats and Republicans. Whether it's Johnson County and Platte County when it comes to tax dollars, or Johnson County and Platte County, or Jackson County and Platte County when it comes to law and order. I would be willing to bet my house Zahn would be prosecuting these kids, these young adults, as adults. You know, if you're going to do the adult crime, then you're going to pay the adult price. Until that starts happening, then we're not crime in this city.
Yep.
It's as simple as that.
It is. Thank you, Victor. I appreciate it. You're right. You know, young men who did not grow up with their father in their home are significantly more likely to spend time in jail by the age of 30. And if this message cannot be made loud and clear, and realize it's not about race. Now, we do know that there are races who are more likely to have single-parent households. That's an unfortunate situation. Black Americans, right now, 46% of kids are living in a single-parent situation. But by the way, whites are not doing great on that front. It's 33%. The group that's doing the best in that category are Asian Americans. They have the highest rate of two-parent households. And by the way, Asian Americans make the most money in this country. They're the highest earners. People always want to make it white versus black. It's not. We are a melting pot in this country, and the highest earners, when you look at racial groups, are Asian Americans. And I believe a large part of that you can directly attribute to the fact that, first off, they are most likely to have two-parent households. And then secondarily, you know, they go to college and they actually study things that aren't basket weaving. They study like, you know, math and science and all those things that, you know, typically will make you a pretty penny. And good on them. If that's what they want to do, if that's, you know, the approach anybody wants to take, that can be you. But when you have the data that shows, hey, two-parent households, stay out of poverty, go to college, less likely to be in jail, you're going to set yourself up for success. The victim here in the Sean Brady shooting is Sean Brady and his family. Not the family of the shooters, not the shooter himself. And it also goes to show you the greatest privilege that you can have in America in 2024 is not white privilege, which is, of course, what your dopey DEI coordinator might tell you. The greatest privilege you can have in America is a two-parent household privilege, because that sets you up to have the best chance of success. Nothing guarantees you success in America, nor should it. But it gives you the best chance to succeed. And that's what it ultimately should be about. What sets me up to have the best opportunity to succeed? And by the way, you can define success however you want. Whether that's making as much money as you possibly can, whether it's waking up every day and being happy with what you're doing, even if it's not as much money, whatever that means for you, however you want to define success, doesn't really matter. But you are set up for that kind of success when you end up in a situation where you have a two-parent household, and you cannot buy that kind of privilege. White privilege is meaningless. The data would suggest that you are far better off in America today with a two-parent household in a Latino, Black, or Asian family versus a single-parent household if you're white. So Square that data and make it make sense. 913-4087-957 is our studio line and our text line here on KCMO Talk Radio. Pete, what about those Taylor Swift courses in college? Those are pretty important, right? You're right. Yes, absolutely. You got to make sure you take the Taylor Swift courses. I think KU's got one. Not sure. I'm sure KU's got one. I think that's where we found that news, a couple of months ago. And Mizzou's got one as well. I think they're starting one up. I don't know about K-State. I doubt K-State would go down that road. But yes, you're right. Got to take the Taylor Swift courses if you want to be a well-rounded citizen when you come out of college. They didn't have that when Mark and I were there. And when John was there, Taylor Swift was 25 years away from being born, I think, or something like that.
About like that.
Might be off by a little bit. Might be more like 15, but either way, you get the point.